We're joined by pro-life activist Christina Bennett, as well as Charles Camosi, a professor of medical humanities at Creighton University School of Medicine, and J.D. Long Garcia, the senior editor at America Media. J.D., there seems to be no grand strategy post-Dobbs. The most recent ballot initiative in Kansas was a failure that took some by surprise. Was the pro-life community and the church ready for this?
I think that we're in a moment right now where it might be premature to say that we're post-Roe. The way things that have been playing out, I think that we're still figuring a lot of things out. There's been a lot of emotional reaction to the Dobbs decision. So the pro-life movement, I think, has to set its bearings, and maybe in some ways was surprised by the reaction that's come about because of this. So I think that right now there's a lot of things that are still up in the air and unclear what the future is going to look like.
That lack of clarity brought out, as you mentioned, an emotional response to some of these lawsuits. Charlie, we're watching lawsuit after lawsuit come up through the state Supreme Courts, through district courts, either to block or defend pro-life laws. Will we just get stuck in the courts again?
It might take a few years. Those of you who are old enough to remember Obamacare and its passage saw lawsuit after lawsuit after endless lawsuit. But here we are many, many years later, and it's the law of the land. Something similar, I think, is going to happen both at the state and perhaps the federal level. So let's get ready for a few lawsuits and to be in the courts for a while, but it won't last forever.
And hopefully that'll give the opportunity for us to have this conversation. Christina, the American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs released a myth versus fact sheet, correcting misinformation around care for women, telling Americans that no abortion restriction ends care for ectopic pregnancies or miscarriages. And one doctor gave expert testimony on the Hill. Let's take a listen.
It is possible for our state to prevent abortions, which intentionally end the life of my fetal patients, while still allowing for physicians to exercise their expert medical judgment in order to intervene in situations where the mother's life is in danger.
Christina, why is this narrative around limiting care so dangerous?
Well, it's dangerous because abortion advocates are lying to women and telling them that the treatment for an ectopic pregnancy, they'll not be able to receive that. I know how that feels. I myself went through a miscarriage, and I at one point feared that I had an ectopic pregnancy. I did not. But it's a really scary thing to go through as a woman. And they're lying to them and manipulating them and causing them to think they won't get basic health care, when in reality what we're doing is just banning abortion, which is the killing of innocent children in the womb.
So that access to basic health care versus access to abortion. J.D., the Washington Post recently wrote that roughly 20.9 million women have lost access to nearly all elective abortions in their home states since Roe was overturned. And the Biden administration recently urged state and local leaders to protect access to abortion. How should the church respond to this?
That points really to a need for evangelization, I think. I think that, oftentimes in the political sphere, we talk about things in terms of getting votes or even simply winning elections. But what we're talking about as Catholics is the people's souls. And that isn't just something that happens instantly on one day where you check the box and then you become one party or the other. What happens for us is it's much more long term. It's much more about conversion. And we need to begin to continue to lay the groundwork for conversion. I think through having encounters with women that are in these situations, and then also being there for them and supportive and providing those wraparound services that will help women choose life.
A church that really does walk with women and their children. Charlie, we've also seen the political space, as J.D. described, incite violence, where multiple life pregnancy centers have become the center of attacks because of misinformation or outright lies about the care these centers provide. Is this a new trend, one we should be concerned with?
Well, we're certainly right to be concerned about it, but it isn't new. It's radically undercovered, of course, over the last several decades, where the narrative was, of course, that pro-lifers are the ones who are violent. But now it's undisputable. The clear trend is one that our opponents on abortion are the ones who are violent. And the way to respond to this, of course, is the way Christ responded to violence, right? It's with nonviolence, it's with love, it's with care for the most vulnerable. It's these very brave and courageous centers, actually, who are getting out there and actually getting their hands dirty, smelling like the sheep, to support the most vulnerable children, women, and their whole families. And I couldn't be prouder of those centers, actually, at this moment.
That's beautiful. Christina, individual Supreme Court justices have also been targets of physical violence. And now the Supreme Court has become the political target from other branches of government, with senators and even the president making aggressive comments about specific members of the court post-Dobbs. Is this also dangerous?
Absolutely. Our Supreme Court justices should never have to live in fear that someone from the general public is going to attack them, rally outside their house, harass them when they go in public places to a restaurant or to be out with their family. And it is our job, especially the government's job, to make sure that they protect our justices so they feel safe. They can do their job knowing that they're protected and that they're safe.
Charlie, we'll give you the last word before we take a break. Why do you think these issues, both violence against the Supreme Court and also violence with pregnancy centers, are undercovered?
Unfortunately, I think in many contexts, the media narrative is not objectively journalistic, but one pushing a particular agenda, right? At least pro-choice, sometimes pro-abortion agenda. And unfortunately, as we see throughout our media culture today, both on the left and the right, narrative wins and journalism often fails. But we're grateful for setting the record straight here, that's for sure.
Well, we'll definitely keep doing that. We'll be back to discuss criticisms of conservatives post-Dobbs and other proposals to support life. Stay right there. We're joined once again by our expert panel, Christina Bennett, Charles Camosy, and JD Long-Garcia, to dive back into our conversation on the post-Roe world. JD, starting with you, it seems some think that this is a failure of policy and courage on the side of Republicans. Commentator Ben Shapiro recently noted that Republicans are losing steam because of Dobbs, citing the Democratic upswing in the wake of Dobbs. Is the pro-life community smaller than we think? Or is this a messaging issue around the life issue?
Yeah, I think related to what Charlie said just previously, I think it has a lot to do with the media and how the media has covered this. I don't think that there is that we are underestimating or overestimating the size of the pro-life movement. I think it's very strong. I think at this point there's a lot of emotions in place, and we've been bombarded by a media that's covering this as if it were a great tragedy. And so I think that we have to keep that in mind. In terms of Republicans losing steam, as a Catholic, I want to be on the side of life. And when I hear that certain parties are winning or losing, I want to focus on what's most important here, and that's the life of the mother and the life of the baby.
And I think that the reason that Ben Shapiro points that out is because Republicans really have been running on the life platform for a long time. Christina, another comment this time by Ramesh Ponnuru at National Review, calling out Republicans avoiding the abortion issue, who say it's a matter for the states to resolve. And he urges that they take up a 20-week federal ban proposal that many have supported in the past. Is this something that pro-lifers should do, incremental support of life?
Well, we are in that place right now where we are in a battle for the states, and we can't deny that. I'm in the state of Connecticut, which is a very pro-abortion state. So while other states like Georgia and Florida and Alabama and Mississippi are making great progress, states like New York and Connecticut are not. But it is important for every person, Republican, Democrat, every person to be involved and to not cast this issue aside, to make this a priority issue and to fight for life and to fight to change their state. And it is something that happens incrementally. It does take time, but we can't lose steam. We have to keep on moving forward because lives are on the line.
Charlie, what do you think about the 20-week proposal?
I think a national conversation about this, frankly, is just too quick. As has been mentioned a couple of times, it's a very emotional time. It's a very sort of ignorant time. People don't really know what they think about this. They have Notre Dame, in fact, did a really important study a year or so ago showing most people don't really have coherent thoughts about abortion. They don't really think about it that much. But it is a golden opportunity for the church to be the church, to kind of evangelize, right, exactly what's going on right now, and saying, hey, here's how to think about prenatal justice. Here's to think about supporting women and families. And I think over 2 or 3 or 4 years, maybe we'd be ready for a more national conversation about that.
Maybe a few more years of conversation. And one of the pieces of that conversation is fetal personhood. JD, that's been in the news lately because the state of Georgia's Living Infants Fairness and Equality Act declares a fetus a person once a heartbeat is detected. And it offers child support for fetuses, a $3,000 tax exemption for mothers. Is this a way to start the conversation and a way forward?
Absolutely. I think it does. I think when it comes to personhood in general, there's a lot of mystery that's surrounding this. I think biologically, we know that from the moment of conception, it is alive. These cells, if you want to call them, they're alive and that they're distinctly human. The question of when personhood begins, I think it's one that can get very theological and very speculative. But in that case, when we don't know, the answer is not that it's okay to terminate a pregnancy. The answer is when we don't know, it's like, well, it very well could be a person. So I think that introducing this question into the debate is an important one, and it's an important step.
Forcing people to recognize personhood and allowing the church, as Charlie said, to evangelize on the issue where we do believe there is life in the womb beginning at conception. Charlie, the National Abortion Federation then provides funding for travel and abortion pills, and it requires women now to take both abortion pills in the state where the abortion is legal. And this obviously requires more money. What's your reaction to this?
Well, this is another place I think we as a pro-life movement can get better at. I don't think we're totally prepared actually for kind of intrastate travel or abortion pills being sent through the mail or things like this. I think it's fair to say we've been caught a little bit flat-footed on these issues. So again, I think this is why it might take 2, 3, 4 years to really get this in order and kind of get our feet under us. But I think at a very basic level, there's an issue of justice no matter what state you're in.
And do you think that companies are getting too involved?
Yes, it's so interesting, in fact, to see corporations kind of cheerlead for abortion. I think that kind of points to a political shift in the culture where people on the so-called right used to be maybe pro-corporation or pro-business are kind of taking a second look and saying, wait a minute, why are these corporations going all in for abortion? Why, in fact, are they paying for their employees to go elsewhere to get abortions instead of providing, equal pay for equal work or paid family leave or other things that support women and families, good old-fashioned Catholic social thought. So yes, I think we need a new skeptical eye, if we didn't have one already, when it comes to corporations and business, when it comes to abortion.
Christina, Charlie brings up a really good point around support for women. The former general counsel of the EEOC said these funding proposals on abortion travel might be pregnancy discrimination. How do you view that?
Well, I can see that point, because if you think about it, what message is it sending to women? If you have two women that are working at a business, a corporation, and they're both pregnant and they're both scared, and one woman knows I can go to my boss and I can get an abortion that's paid for, and the other woman thinks I'm afraid to go to my boss because I don't even know if I'll be able to take off enough time to be with my baby if I have my baby. So that really leads the woman who's thinking about having her baby to perhaps lean towards abortion, because abortion is something that's covered, and maybe it's not covered for her to spend enough time at home with her child or get the support and resources that she needs. And so what's actually happening is companies and businesses are actually coercing women towards abortion. They're influencing them towards abortion by offering this financial incentive and not offering the support and the resources that they need to parent a child.
JD, I see you shaking your head. You get the last word on this.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, when the idea that the abortion rights people are more in favor of a woman getting a right to choose, that's simply not true. They are being coerced toward a particular decision, and if we really want to, even in these states where we face a very difficult battle as pro-life individuals, like in California or New York, I think that we need to start making the case of why women need to be given more support when they do choose life, when they do choose the life of their baby, and that we're there for them to help make that choice. Because right now it's true, like there's a lot of pressure on women to have abortions.
And that's bad for everyone. Well, thank you all for this in-depth conversation. I hope you'll join us again.
Thank you.
Thank you.